Hello and welcome to Business Finishing School. Let your business brain finish what your entrepreneurial heart started. Our catalyzing statement is a successful entrepreneur inside of every business. Enjoy this module.
Wow, it's so interesting that we are now in year 4 of the program. This is module 1 of year 4. And as you now know, it's module 37. It's very hard for me to believe that we are in the 4th year of creating this product for you. And now that we're getting down to the serious business of legacy, this year, what I've come to realize as I prep for the final year of the program is that your legacy is completely 100% dependent on your vision of your future, your vision of the future of your business. Maybe it's with you in 20 years, or maybe you sell it to someone else. But the vision that you create for your business depends on your legacy, and the legacy that you create depends on your vision. They work together. In other words, if I am talking to someone who owns a business and I say, what's your vision for the future? Where do you see your business in 20 years? If their answer is, well, I'm really not clear about it, I can guarantee one thing, that they have no control over their legacy. So when you think about your legacy, I want you to think long and hard about, what do you want your family to say about you as a parent? What do you want your employees to say about you as a business person? What do you want the community to say about you as a citizen? If you don't have a crystal clear answer to that question, to each one of those questions, then you're leaving your legacy up to chance. And that's why it is very important that you take year 4 in the program very seriously. If you've gotten this far in the program, you know that each module and each year builds on itself and builds on the ones before it. So you have to think about year 1 was about foundational principles. Year 2 was about business acceleration. Year 3 was about accountability. And year 4 is about legacy. You can't have year 2 implemented in your life unless you've, to some degree, mastered year 1. You can't have accountability unless you have the foundational principles and you have the acceleration training. And you certainly cannot have a positive legacy unless you've nailed all of this stuff down. So, legacy is sometimes defined as how you live after you die, or how your spirit lives after you die, or how you live after you move on from your company. So you could still be very much alive, but your legacy will live inside of all the projects you've worked on. It will live inside of all the conversations that people have about you. When you send your kids off to college, they will have to live with, and you will have to live with, the legacy that you created for them. So legacy is a very simple word with many ramifications. The title of this module is Legacy Mindset and Overview. And my purpose is to give you an overview of the year ahead for you, and also to help you focus on the mindset that you need to have to think about what legacy you want to leave behind. So let's start with a very simple exercise. No matter where you are, you could do this in your mind, and then later you could download the implementation guide. All right, here goes. I want you to close your eyes. If you're driving, obviously pull over. I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to imagine in vivid detail your legacy. I want you to imagine 2 people that knew you talking about you after you're gone. What are they saying about you? What are they saying about your accomplishments? What are they saying about your legacy? What are they saying about your business? What are they saying about your values? What are they saying about how you treated people? What are they saying about how they felt around you? You've heard me say before, people rarely remember what you say. but they always remember how they felt in your presence. Think about that. They don't remember what you said, but they remember how they felt. That's why when you think you made a really bad speech, oftentimes people will come up to you and say, wow, that was a great speech, because it's not about you and your speech. It's about how they felt in your presence. Legacy is a lot like that. People aren't going to always remember what you said, but they'll remember what it was like to work with you. They'll remember what it was like to be in relationship with you. They'll remember what it was like to be parented by you. They'll remember what it was like to be mentored by you. So I'm going to come at this topic all year in and from multiple contexts and multiple directions. My purpose is to set the year up for you, an overview of the year, and then Patrick will join me in the rest of the modules, just like we did last year. The exercise we did a moment ago, I want you to now extend to the community at large. What do you want your legacy to be in your community and the various communities that you care about? What do you want your legacy to be professionally? What do you want your legacy to be as it relates to important relationships? And then fill in the blank. You can have a legacy in many, many, many different domains of your life. My goal right now as you're listening is to have you begin to think about legacy. It's a word that we don't often throw around. It's a word that doesn't come up on date night, for example. It doesn't come up when you're talking to your friends. It doesn't come up when you're talking to your employees. But I am demanding you and asking you and begging you to have it be an important word. Have it be a word that gets thrown around often for you, because things that get measured get done. And if there's a way for you to measure how clearly you have your visions laid out for each of the aspects of your life, if you think about it, if you do it, that means it's done. And that radically increases the odds that your legacy is secure. It is impossible to have a positive legacy, a favorable legacy, if you haven't taken the time out of your life to do the exercises that we're going to do this year. We're going to have modules obviously focused on legacy throughout the year, but we're going to talk about things like keystone habits that you can implement, how to be more curious about your legacy, how to position your business for sale so that it could live beyond you with a legacy, how to have more balance in your life so that you can have a legacy more secure in various aspects. We're going to talk about Peter Pan syndrome. We're going to talk about charity. And most important, we're going to talk about what is a life well lived, among other things. But I wanted to whet your appetite. All right, one of the things that I've learned about how legacy is informed, and I don't want to speak gobbledygook. What I mean by informed is what brings it to life, is the daily decisions that we make on how we allocate our time. And I want to take you through a very, very simple exercise that I learned a long time ago. And it starts with the notion of how people say they spend their time versus how people actually spend their time is a determinant of what their values really are. So, I think back to an example that I often use, and at the time he was a very close friend, and we were going through our values. And I said, let's not talk about values because it was confusing him. I said, what are your priorities in life? If you were to prioritize the main buckets that you value, how would you prioritize it? And he said, oh, that's easy. God first, family second, career third, health and fitness fourth. I said, that's great. And we used to talk about it often. In fact, him and I created a booklet to carry around with us that listed our objectives, our values, our, what we called it at the time, mission statements that we were creating, business plans. It was a weekly meeting. Anyway, One time he asked me, as it were, he asked me to stay with him for the weekend, and I can't remember the circumstances around that. But I remember him often talking about his priorities in life were in the order that I said: God, family, career, and health and fitness. Well, when we went to stay at his home, what we found out is he had planned golf for Saturday and Sunday. And those of you that play golf, you know by the time you leave your house and get to wherever you're going and then play your 18 holes and get home, oftentimes it's 6 hours out of your day. And then if you have extended lunch or a drink afterwards, it's 8 hours out of your day. And this is a person with a family. So he had planned two golf outings. He had planned a night out on Friday night and Saturday night with friends, not including his wife. And he wanted to go to places that I normally don't visit. The point I'm getting at is, here's a person who said that his priorities were God, family, career, and health and fitness. There were no workouts. There was no worship of any kind. There was no meditation. There was no time spent with the family. There was no health and fitness focus whatsoever, unless you consider walking around 18 holes as health and fitness, which a lot of people will justify. The bottom line is this: whatever you say your values are, and whatever you say your priorities are in life, that's where you need to focus your time, period. You should spend the vast majority of your time, of your waking hours, on the things that you say are a priority in your life. And when you do that, you will guarantee a legacy moving in the right direction. Because what happens is, if you recall earlier, I talked about how people don't remember what you say, they remember how they felt in your presence. Well, people feel good when you're integral. And integral is an interesting word. It means you're whole. You're a whole human being. You're in integrity. The things you say match the things that you value, which match the things that you prioritize, which match the things that you do. And people feel good around integral people. It's just the way life is. You now have to take this very same exercise and extend it to your business. When you think about your business life, what are the priorities of your business? What are the priorities of you personally inside of your business? And whenever I do this exercise with people, what I find is that they say they prioritize certain tasks and certain aspects of the business, and yet if you follow them around for a day or a week or a month, they're spending less than 5% of their time on those things that they say are a priority. Legacy is formed right there. Where is your time going? Is your time going into things that you say you value? So to go back to an exercise that we've done all the way back to Module 1, if you value 5 things, for example, then all of the things that you're associated with inside your business, all the people you're associated with inside your business, should align with those values. And every minute of your life, inside your business and outside of your business, that you spend with people and projects that don't align with your values is a wasted minute. You're ripping off the world every time you do that, because the world wants you to be aligned with your values at every moment. And you know when you're out of alignment. I was recently with an acquaintance who confessed to me over lunch that he was having an affair. You know, he was in an affair with another woman. Now, I thought that he was upset about it and he wanted to ask my advice. Turns out it was going on for like 6 years at the time. 6 years? And I said, you mean you had 6 years? 6 years living with this guilt. 6 years of saying that you valued family. And he really didn't quite understand the collateral damage that he was doing to all of his relationships because of this secret. And ultimately, I've since learned, his marriage dissolved. And obviously that affects the children, that affects the employees, that affects everyone. But that level of deceit is common in people that don't live a life that's fully aligned with their values. So I'm talking about this topic, and have been since the beginning of the call, as it relates to priority, as it relates to values, as it relates to how you're showing up to people. It's all one thing. And the one thing that I want you to understand as I'm teaching this to you is the one thing is, what do you want to leave behind when you're gone? And if that thing that you want to leave behind is an incredibly clear vision that's fully aligned and fully integral, then you have to work backwards. You have to have all the things that we've talked about over the first 3 years of the program. You have to have simplicity, probability, and leverage. You have to have clearly defined values. You have to have clearly defined objectives. So as you can see, the whole program builds on itself. I want to take you now to a recent conversation with someone in the program. I was taking him through an analysis of his business to determine if he was putting the modules on the ground and to what degree. And I said to him, tell me about your business 5 years from now. And he said, well, I want to be more successful than I am now. And I said, okay, great. Give me all the attributes of your business 5 years from now. And he's like, well, I don't know, maybe I want to hire another partner, another associate. Maybe I want to hire another front desk person. And I was in shock. I said, why don't you say you want to grow your revenue by 500%? Why don't you want to say that you have a thriving multi-office company that's in several countries? Why don't you want to say that you're giving money back to the community? Why don't you want to clarify all aspects of your business? If you don't clarify it right down to the most minute detail, it won't happen. So it's imperative, and you could look at the implementation guide for some direction on this. It's imperative that you are curious and you are willing and you are open-minded to dream. And maybe a better way for you to approach this exercise is, if a genie came out of a bottle and you were on vacation somewhere and this genie popped out of the bottle and said, I want to grant you the absolute perfect life, but you have to describe it to me. I want you to describe the perfect business. I want you to describe the perfect marriage. I want you to describe the perfect family life. And if you can describe it to me, I will grant it to you. Do you know that the vast majority of us would be dumbfounded? Even if a genie popped out of a bottle, if that were able to happen, they still couldn't define what it is. So it will never happen. It won't even happen if a genie will grant it to you. So that's why it's imperative for you to put some very, very serious thought into this. So as a result of you listening to the beginning of this module, I want you to start talking to your spouse. I want you to start talking to your friends. I want you to start talking to your clients about legacy. Because the more you think about it, the more you talk about it, the more this becomes imprinted on your soul, the more you increase the odds that it will actually happen the way you want it to happen. And listen, life always throws us curveballs. But when the future's clearly defined, those curveballs tend to be fastballs right down the center of the plate, if you know what I mean. And let me give you a very clear example of that. If a husband and wife has a really nasty argument, oftentimes nasty arguments can lead to a divorce. But if that same husband and wife has a nasty argument, but they have a crystal clear vision of the legacy that they want to leave behind with their kids, and they've talked about that legacy, and they envision a world 50 years from now when they're 95 years old and they're in their rocking chairs holding hands, that legacy carries the day. That legacy carries much more weight than an argument. And the arguments and the negative things that happen to us, that happen to all of us, they carry less weight and are less significant when our legacy and our vision and all of that has been talked about, has been put in writing, and has been imprinted on our souls. I talk to a lot of you on a weekly basis. I'm having a deep conversation with someone in the program. And it often gets to this point in the conversation where I say, I get that you enjoy listening to these modules, and I get that you enjoy listening to the videos, coming to the boot camps, hearing what we talk about, and that enjoyment bothers me because I don't want you to enjoy what we're teaching you. What I want far more than that is I want you to take it seriously, and I want it to change your life. I want you to put it on the ground. Yeah, you could listen to 1,000 different speakers and you could move the needle a little bit in your life, but it's not until you make a conscious decision to change your life by putting this stuff on the ground. That's when I smile. That's when I get happy. And that's when you are happy too. There was a book that I read a long time ago, and it was called Power versus Force. And in the book, the author made the comment that if people put intense effort around changing aspects of their personality or changing important relationships in their life, the average person only changes 1 or 2%, even over many years. And that's probably true. It's the same thing like diet and exercise. But there is the 5% of people, and I've seen it happen, it's about 5%, that radically transform because they put a stake in the ground and they say, I am done with the past. Well, I would like you to listen to this module and the ones that follow it and really think about change. Really think about change. And as you know, the one thing that's going to make change more permanent is accountability. If you're not involved in a relationship, whether it's an accountability group or one individual that you meet with weekly, you say, hold me accountable to being a great woman. Hold me accountable to being a great man. Hold me accountable to the modules. Hold me accountable to the principles that I've learned. Hold me accountable to this vision of my legacy. If you're not doing that, then the odds of change being permanent are much, much, much lower. And we've talked about almost every module. We've talked about simplicity, probability, and leverage. Well, if you want to guarantee that you will have a legacy that's enduring and that's positive, you've got to focus on doing the homework in this module and make sure you're focused in a way that you're creating simplicity, probability, and leverage for yourself. You don't want to think about a legacy that adds complexity. You don't want to think about a legacy that lowers the probability of your success. You don't want to think about a legacy that doesn't add leverage. And what I mean by that is when you have the ideal legacy, it's leverageable. It's something that goes from one individual to another rapidly, like a catalyzing statement does. So as you're going through these modules and as you're going through the homework, make sure you're imprinting simplicity, probability, and leverage on everything you're doing. I was involved in a book project, and at every turn in the project with my co-authors, they wanted to add so much complexity. And several months into the project, I asked them all, I said, the best book projects that you've ever been involved with, if you think about the very, very best book projects, tell me about them. And they kept throwing words around like simplicity. And they kept saying words like, well, we were leveraged through the publisher, we were leveraged through the ghostwriters. So they were using the very words. Yet, when it came to the project, they did what most humans do. They complexified it. So legacy is a lot like that. The simpler you keep all aspects of all the projects you're involved in, the greater the chance that the legacy will compound long after your involvement ceases. I want to talk about an interesting personal story. As many of you know, I'm one of 9 children. And my parents took family dinners very, very, very seriously. When I think back to my childhood, I think about coming home around 5 o'clock, helping my mother set the table. I loved cooking. I loved getting my hands dirty. And this wasn't every night that I helped, but I helped a lot. I just loved it. And I remember conversations at the dinner table. I remember all of us sitting around the table. It was me. I went by Ricky, Sandy, Susie, Judy, Debbie, Vinny, Bobby, Russell, Tina, my mother sitting across from me. And I remember my father talking about values. I remember him talking about staying married for life. I remember him talking about the friends that you choose. And when my dad got sick when I was 11, and then he ultimately passed away from bone cancer when I was 13, those lessons stayed with me. The legacy of my dad stays with me nearly 40 years after he died. That's incredible. I cry thinking about how impactful his legacy was to me. And then I look at the rest of my siblings. And when you take a family that large, and you take a dad who was the breadwinner, the only breadwinner, and you remove him from that. And my mother was not a strong person. She dealt with massive depression at the time and actually throughout her whole life. You have parents that basically disappear. And yet when I look at my siblings and I look at all of the success that they've had, over 200 years of marriage with no divorces, that is all because of the legacy that my father left behind. And when I think about how leverageable that is, wow, how leverageable is having family dinners? Well, it's incredibly leverageable, as I just told you. But those small things that you can do right now inside of your business, the meetings where you're looking people in the eye and you're telling them what you stand for, what your purpose is, what your values are, family dinners with your kids, date night with your spouse, whatever it is, when you're there, you have to be fully present, just like my dad was, despite all of the problems he had, despite cancer that ravaged his body for 3 years. He stayed committed to those family dinners, and that's what really has had an unbelievable effect on my life. When I think about the legacy that I want to leave behind for my 4 children, I think about books that I want to write to leave them. I think about videos that I want to hand them. I think about notes that I want to give them. I think about weekly dates with them individually. I think about game night at the house, which we have every Friday night. And those things will imprint on them the legacy, a positive legacy, that I want. I don't want to leave my legacy up to chance with the things that I get involved with in my life. And I don't want you to leave it up to chance either. So the number one overriding objective of this first module is to set you up for the year in the future that we're going to have together talking about legacy, and we're going to break it up into modules as we always do. But most importantly, I want you to objectify legacy. I want you to put it on the ground so you do not leave your legacy up to chance. If you leave your legacy up to chance and you don't put the conscious, difficult work into creating the legacy that you want to leave, then I guarantee you one thing: your legacy will be nowhere near as powerful as it could be if you do the heavy lifting. Thank you for listening.
Let your business brain finish what your entrepreneurial heart started.